Yep, a little evolution. Rather than Nimble Mongoose and Tarmogoyf, it uses white for Geist of St. Traft and Stoneforge Mystic as its threat base.
Yeah, and he's going to be playing against David Doberne, who was our runner-up this morning. He is playing a Dark Maverick list. The black is just for the activation on Gaddock Teague, but kind of a throw to the past. Maverick's a deck we've seen. Oh, and 3 Thoughtseize. So this is a deck that we have seen kind of fall out of favor and then start to slowly creep its way back into the meta.
Yep. You know, green-white hate bears, kind of hard to keep the hate bears down. You know, anybody who just wants to target specific decks and make complicated game states and give the opponent fits, hate bears is always going to be around to do exactly that.
And one of the reasons this archetype is viable is because of this opening play that David makes. It is a fetch land into a turn 1 Mother of Runes.
Yep, Mother of Runes, one of the more annoying cards in Magic history. Quite annoying, very difficult to deal with. Once it gets active, it can protect itself as well as the other creatures from removal, from blockers, from attackers, from anything.
Yeah. So while Mother of Runes is in play, the turn 2 Kasali Pride Mage from Doberne is going to go ahead and eat a daze. Wheeler picks up his own Volcanic Island to counter the spell.
Mother does not like to attack.
No, so really,
she's a pacifist.
She just never, almost never does. Maybe the second copy of her attacks sometimes.
Yeah, no, she likes to sit there with her mug of coffee, drinking, looking over her children.
So right now we just kind of have, the Mavericks hasn't landed a threat yet, but no pressure from the Delver deck, as Doberne will make his 3rd land and then cast Stoneforge Mystic.
Yep. Big part of what the blue-white-red Delver deck needs to do is land a huge threat and then play this sort of aggro-controlling role. Without the threat out, it's unlikely that the Delver deck is going to be able to run the Maverick deck out of threats. Usually you want to run them out of threats just long enough to kill them, but without that threat, it's going to be a lot more difficult.
Yeah, so what's going to happen is that Benjamin Wheeler is going to have to play from behind a little bit here, which can be difficult for Maverick to do. We see a Stifle on the come into play ability for Stoneforge Mystic. Doberne had the equipment already in Umezawa's Jite, but the Jite was dazed, leaving Doberne with just 2 cards in his hand.
Yeah, very easily could have taken the turn back and used Stoneforge Mystic's ability to make the Umezawa's Jite uncounterable on the turn after, but chose to run it out there and ends up getting punished with a daze.
Yeah. Well, we will see just how much more counter magic Wheeler has. David is going to go now for a real-sized threat in Knight of the Reliquary.
Knight of the Reliquary, quite big and gets bigger, and now that it's landed with Mother of Runes protecting it, it's going to be a tough race for this lone Delver of Secrets.
And Knight of the Reliquary ends up getting very big. We are going to see a Delver of Secrets flip off Swords to Plowshares. But remember, he's going to need 2 kill spells to deal with that Knight of the Reliquary.
Yep. Mother of Runes does not like her children being plowed away.
And if you haven't seen how the pressure is applied from Dark Maverick, or just Maverick decks in general, despite the fact that Knight of the Reliquary is going to be a very large creature, it generally turns into, I believe in this situation, a wasteland machine.
Yes. Lock them out while, the Stoneforge Mystic and the Dryad Arbor attack for 1 apiece.
Especially potent as Delver only plays 6 actual mana lands, and they are all non-basics, typically.
Yep.
So we see a Brainstorm from Wheeler. He's going to go ahead and put 2 back. Then he Taxing Probes, finding out that Doberne's last card is a Mazavith.
Making this race even more difficult.
Yeah, so he's gonna... Is it fair to say he's gonna have to try to run Doberne out of threats? He's gonna need to somehow get this Knight of the Reliquary off the table very quickly.
Yep, it looks very likely that he's gonna have to end up 2-forwarding himself to take out the Mother and then deal with each individual threat as it comes. As this race is not favorable for Benjamin Wheeler.
And a wasteland naturally drawn by Doberne. So that will speed up the wastelanding clock that Knight of the Reliquary presents.
Yep, Knight of the Reliquary growing by the minute. Only 2 forests/plains, with Cradle and Caracas not being able to find wastelands.
But we're going to see Doberne start to get aggressive here. He turns the Dryad Arbor sideways, debating, puts Stoneforge Mystic in there, and now he's on the attack, putting Wheeler down to 15.
Yep, and this is, you can see the story of this game in the number of permanents. We have a land and an insectile aberration versus 4 creatures and 3/4 lands.
All right, so we are going to see an end-step fetch here by Wheeler. Remember, this is he's going to get to use this mana just about once before Doberne takes it away. It's going to be for Volcanic Island. So remember, we know he has that he had the Swords to Plowshares before he brainstormed.
Right.
We don't know if he chose to keep it. And it looks like Doberne's going to let him untap with the Volcanic Island.
Yep, don't want to run your Wasteland into a Stifle. Wait until he uses the mana and then go for the Wasteland. Not too afraid of one use.
Right, and the race continues. Insectile Aberration puts Doberne down to 13, so Wheeler's still keeping pace at the moment, but is rapidly falling behind.
And now we see exactly that. The Wasteland machine is underway.
Yeah, so Knight of the Reliquary's ability to search out another land means that he can sacrifice this Savannah to go ahead and get additional copies of Wasteland, which is what he'll do. Or possibly in this case, he has another option where he can get Horizon Canopy.
Draw a card. It's reasonable. I think I prefer locking out the Delver player, just Wasteland machine, but, you know, drawing cards never hurt.
Yeah, so it basically taps because he can float the mana from Savannah ahead of time, that actually just lets him basically stack his Savannah to draw a card.
Yep. And now the brainstorm resolves, and Benjamin Wheeler's going to have to sculpt a game plan here. Versus an ever-growing Knight of the Reliquary, Mother of Rune's Protection, and 2 other little dorks chipping away at his life total.
Alright, so second land on the table for Wheeler. It's going to be a Scalding Tarn. Now he'll join Doberne down at 13.
Shuffle away those 2 that he didn't want from the brainstorm. Looks like a couple of lands.
Yeah, and now he has all his colors online as he has gotten Tundra for the turn.
So even though David chose to get Horizon Canopy on that one turn, that does not lock him into anything. He can still get Wasteland Train going at any point. So Benjamin Wheeler is very much, you know, taxed in that he has to use his mana as effectively as possible.
Yeah. Wheeler currently building toward the late game. He sets up his draw there with a Ponder, keeps all 3 on top and takes one of the cards. So right now he's still at pace and he's still even at 13. But he's very far behind on the board, and as you mentioned, racing will become a lot harder as David drops Maze of Ith.
Yep, Maze of Ith going to be able to stop that Insectile Aberration beating in the air. And Knight of the Reliquary, I was about to say, Knight of the Reliquary Trick's also a viable option here. What you can do is actually, after damage, use it on your own creature, untapping the Knight of the Reliquary so that it gets to both attack and use its ability.
Yeah, and he's going to do just that. So he deals the damage with the Knight, untaps it to go find a Wasteland, and Wastelands the Tundra, bringing Wheeler back down to 1 mana, but more importantly, bringing him to 5 life.
Yep. Facing lethal, and the big finish, the Birds of Paradise.
Which is actually a blocker here, to be fair. But Wheeler, 13-5, now down pretty big in the race, and only with a 3/2 in play is going to have a real hard time dealing enough damage to make this work.
Yep.
And he's going to start searching with a Ponder.
Ponder a little dirtily, you know, he's much prefer to use that mana on something that can get him back to something resembling parity on board. But instead, he's going to have to shuffle and draw a random card.
Right.
Grim Lavamancer.
Grim Lavamancer would have been a great play earlier in the game. Right now, it seems like it's a little late to the show.
Yep. Definitely a good card in this matchup, but not when you're this far behind.
And we see here, we're contemplating if he has any options. He can swing for 3, but he's wondering if there's any way that he can actually stop this attack next turn.
Yeah, I mean, you have to get multiple colors of creatures in play to be able to chump block the Knight of the Reliquary, untap and use your mana effectively to use 2 removal spells on it. Seems like your only way out.
Wheeler's down to 4, finding his last copy of Volcanic Island. And that'll be for the Grim Lavamancer he drew.
Yep.
And now it looks like the Insectile Aberration is staying home. He does have what you said though. He has made a both red creature and a blue creature, so he will be able to chump block the Knight of the Reliquary. It looks like.
Yep.
But where does he go from there once he has the chump block?
That is the question. He is still very much under the gun. He's going to have a pretty impressive next turn.
All right, so it's just Knight of the Reliquary being sent. We have 2 wastelands, 2 fetch lands. We have enough lands. I think he's a 7/7 right now. Either way, he's very lethal, and he takes down the Delver of Secrets.
Yep. Interesting choice not to Maze of Ith, the Knight of the Reliquary there. Not likely to matter, but...
Yeah, so there's that window after the damage where he can Maze the Knight of the Reliquary.
Right.
And a second Mother of Runes for Doberne means that blocking will be almost impossible for Wheeler here. He would need 3 colors of creatures, which his deck can provide.
So it's going to start with
easy.
Lavamancer on the active Mother of Runes.
Alright, so she's going to go ahead and tap, give herself pro-red.
Then you have to Swords to Plowshares the Knight of the Reliquary. And then hopefully, for his sake, also kill a Mother of Runes while you can.
He's going to Swords the Knight of the Reliquary. So, I don't believe, had the Knight of the Reliquary been untapped, I've seen a couple Maverick lists play Sajiri Step as a possible target for it. I do not believe that is not in Doberne's list. So there's no way for it to protect itself using his ability.
Correct. If Knight of the Reliquary were active, it simply would have gotten a Wasteland and choked Benjamin Wheeler on this turn to prevent, if Benjamin Wheeler did have a Lightning Bolt also, he wouldn't have been able to cast it, but this way he would.
Yeah, when you think of the utility lands for Knight in the Maverick decks, it typically is a Cradle, a Karakas, a Maze,
and then 3 or 4 Wastelands.
Yeah, he has 3, so
okay.
Exactly. And 2 Horizon Canopies, I guess would be the last utility he can find.
Value.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta draw a card.
All right, and this is almost, I like how this is almost a lethal swing here. He has 3 power on the battlefield. Does not have the 4th, so he's going to have to...
It's amazing that, a format where all the most powerful cards in the history of Magic the Gathering are available, and we're looking at a 1/1, a 1/1, and a 1/2 facing down a 1/1.
Yeah. Really, the telling part about Legacy, I think, is that not so much the size of the creatures, but if you look at the mana cost of the creatures on the board.
Yes.
You have 1/1, 1/1, and 2.
So this looks like a Cradle-powered Green Sun Zenith. This is probably Sigarda, which will end the game instantly. Yep, there we go.
This is a Zenith for 5. So Sigarda, Host of Hands, is a 1-of in the Maverick deck that is meant to be its end-all finisher, where Knight of the Reliquary can be vulnerable.
Right. It's for really removal-heavy decks such as Shardless Bug and... it looks like he Grim Lavamancered himself there. And Jund. Jund is the other big one for Sigarda.
Yeah. All right, so Doberne takes down the first game over Benjamin Wheeler.
Hate bears hate.
And really what we saw there, I also want to say, is that Wheeler did not land a relevant threat on turn 1. He was on the draw, and as a result, he just fell a little far behind.
Yep, he didn't have the answer for the turn 1 Mother, which made all of his subsequent cards a lot worse, and he spent a couple of key turns or key pieces of mana doing things like pondering and brainstorming. He didn't already have those things set up, and that was compounded by the fact that he was being choked on mana by the Wasteland machine. And David's deck did exactly what it's supposed to.
Yeah, so originally, blue-white Delver, blue-white red Delver out of the board for this matchup. Why don't we go ahead and look at what it has here?
The blue-white-red Delver deck is going to board some removal. It's going to take a little more of a controlling stance, which it can do because it has things like Brainstorm, where the Maverick deck does not. So we're looking at 2 Pyroclasm, the 4th Swords to Plowshares, a couple of Submerges, and an Engineered Explosives, as well as a Sword of Feast and Famine for the Stoneforge Mystic package, probably coming in, and a Wear Tear for David's artifacts and enchantments and equipments and whatnot.
Yeah, so he has that package. I've noticed that he's actually running Pyroclasm over Rough Tumble, which is generally the Pyroclasm variant you see in Delver decks. Is that a specific choice here, or is that kind of a change in the meta?
Yeah, it just depends on, how you think you're going to be using them. Rough Tumble does not kill your own Delvers, but it also doesn't kill opposing Birds of Paradise or opposing Delvers. There are a couple of differences. You're never really going to tumble, so they're...
Right, it's actually just a Pyroclasm for non-flyers.
Right, so it's just a matter of whether you think you're going to be in situations where you really need to not kill your own flyer versus how many times you're going to need to kill your opponent's flyer. Very small choice, but you are correct in that, that is a point of contention between these different builds. A lot of people prefer Rough Tumble, but I've seen Pyroclasms and I've heard good arguments for both sides.
Yeah, a little bit. What's interesting on Benjamin's deck list is I'm noticing it's shaved down on some of the staples of the deck. Right now he has only 3 Stifles, for example. He's playing 3 Force of Will, which I think is somewhat standard.
Yeah. Shaving Force of Wills has been a thing for quite a while in Legacy. 2 for 1ing yourself, no matter how efficient it is mana-wise, is never a good thing, and really only super strong against combo. So cutting a Force of Will and moving it to the sideboard, that's pretty standard. 3 Stifle is interesting. Stifle to me feels like a 4 or 0 card.
It's like either you're on the mana denial plan or you're not on the mana denial plan.
Exactly. Either you want, to have multiple Stifles and really shut them down off of all their lands and follow it up with Wastelands, or you don't want to, worry about holding up mana for Stifle, and then you don't want to draw them late because they're not so good late.
Well, in this matchup, is this even a matchup where he keeps in the Stifle package?
I would imagine not. It does have a couple of applications. It can stop a Kasali Pride Mage from killing a piece of equipment, and it can also stop a Stoneforge Mystic from fetching a piece of equipment. It also prevents Wasteland activation on Benjamin Wheeler's lands, so it does have its applications. I would say that he keeps them in, but it is interesting that he is only playing 3. Stifle for value is sort of a thing, right? Against, say, a Gristlebrand activation.
Absolutely, Stifle's excellent.
Being able to stifle that.
7 cards.
Yeah, exactly. Even if you're above 15, stifling the Annihilator trigger on a sneak attacked Emrakul, there are those other applications, and stifling. I would say that stifling a Kasali Pride Mage or a Stoneforge Mystic are 2 more of those uses. But I would think that the main use from a deck design perspective would be to use it as a Stone Rain.
All right, so this game's going to be it's going to be a different pace game, as this time we have Wheeler on the play, and he has a turn 1 play with Delver of Secrets.
Absolutely huge. This is step 1 on the path for the Delver deck.
All right, Doberne, though, has a good response in Deathrite Shaman. Wheeler naturally flips Delver off of Swords to Plowshares.
That's step 2.
That's step 2, flip the Delver.
Yeah, step 3 is going to come in the attack step.
All right. And we see a Jataxian Probe. It's going to be Thoughtseize, Mother of Runes, Abrupt Decay, Thalia, Green Sun Zenith, and Dryad Arbor.
Pretty interesting hand, pretty spread out hand, quite varied.
To me, it seems land light. If David loses this Deathrite Shaman, that could be really bad for him.
Yeah, and even if he weren't to lose it,
he can't actually make mana.
Yeah, if Benjamin Wheeler were to just not use a fetch land, it would look a little sheepish.
So we're gonna see Wheeler follows up with the Tundra and just passes the turn.
Surprised to not see a Swords to Plowshares there. Suppose that he's holding it for the Mother of Runes. Once you want your first removal spell to hit Mother, so that your subsequent removal spells actually work.
Yeah, we see the Dryad Arbor. Remember, because it's also a creature, it can't tap for mana this turn. And so we're going to see a hit for 3, putting Doberne down to 14. He will gain life off the Swords to Plowshares.
Yep.
But Wheeler going for the full mana denial package here, wastelanding away the Dryad Arbor after he killed the Stoneforge Mystic.
Really strong. As a general rule of thumb, if you're gonna ponder, you want to do it first, get your most information, but I'm pretty sure that this turn was fairly mapped out for Benjamin. you know, taking out 2 mana sources against a land-light opponent while having a clock and a strong hands. That is the ideal situation for the blue-white-red Delver
Yeah,
deck.
he actually knows that Doberne doesn't have another land, or didn't have another land. Doberne actually got to draw one this turn, so he's not locked out of the game. He's going to fetch immediately. He's able to get his land around Stifle. And now he has kind of a choice of plays here. We know he has a turn 2 Thalia. He also has a possibility to Green Sun Zenith for a 1. He's definitely on the back foot.
He is. I think that step 1 is actually going to be the Abrupt Decay here, it looks like. That is a little unfortunate for him that he's going to have to fetch out a black source here and still strands those white cards in his hand. But you can Abrupt Decay this turn, Green Sun Zenith for, say, a Deathrite Shaman next turn, and then have access to white after that. Or vice versa, that works as well.
Yeah, so he just needs to preserve his life total.
Yeah.
Yeah, Delver is definitely one of those decks that makes 1 or 2 threats and then rides that threat for the whole game.
Absolutely.
It's like a protect the queen sort of strategy.
Yep. Good old counter slivers.
Yeah.
What year is it? But this is still a thing that we're doing?
I remember, what is it? Cards like Abrupt Decay. So Delver, at that time it was Rug Delver, was kind of the king of the format for a while, and it was really cards like Abrupt Decay that kind of pushed it off the top of the metagame.
For exactly that reason. I mean, it takes 1 threat and protects it and rides it, but you can't protect it from an Abrupt Decay unless it's a Nimble Mongoose. Then it protects itself.
Then it protects itself.
Yeah, that guy's a slippery little mongoose.
All right, so we see after fetching the Bayou, he actually is going to Green Sun for 1. And it looks like the plan is to set up his mana base hard more so that he can cast multiple spells on the following turns.
Makes sense.
It's going to cost him 3 life, though. So Benjamin will get at least 1 more Delver hit.
This is true. He also chooses to get a Birds of Paradise rather than a Deathrite Shaman. Interesting choice.
All right, so Gitaxian Probe shows the rest of Doberne's hand. It is 3 white cards: Stoneforge Mystic, Mother of Runes, Thalia, Guardian of Thraben, and then 2 black cards: the Abrupt Decay we knew about, and a Thoughtseize that he has drawn. Well, Thoughtseize extra side. Thoughtseize is also in the opener, so most things we knew about.
And here comes Insectile Aberration, hitting David down to 11. Now, if you have a removal spell, do you bolt the birds, as they say? Bolt the elf.
My guess would have to be yes here.
Yeah, cutting off the white and the 3rd mana both seem so good.
Yeah, once you're in the Delver deck, you basically, it seems to me that you want to deny mana as long as you think that's a winnable fight. You know, once your opponent has 4 mana in play, then the mana denial strategy's off.
Right. Instead, we see a Geist of St. Traft. Pretty sizable threat here.
Yeah, that's a pretty decent play on its own. It does mean that Doberne can make a card like Thalia to attempt to block the Geist of St. Traft.
Yep. We could see something like Thoughtseize into Thalia here. We could see Abrupt Decay Thalia.
Yeah, Doberne actually did draw a fetch land for the turn, so now he has the ability to play multiple spells in a turn. Which
is pretty important at this juncture, as he's been choked down to 0 things a turn for a while there. So he's got to catch up a bit. Looks like he's actually looking at that Stoneforge Mystic. I wouldn't fault him if he tried to go Stoneforge Mystic Thalia here.
All right, and he's going to start on exactly that, Stoneforge Mystic.
I actually think that you lead with Thalia here so that your 2nd spell doesn't get dazed.
Yeah, the Thalia could get dazed.
And if Thalia gets dazed, then he has no profitable blocks on the Geist of St. Traft, and that would be devastating.
All right, he's going to go ahead and, it looks like, grab Batter Skull off the Stoneforge Mystic. And then while he's in the deck, he's going to go ahead and crack the fetch land to find a white source. So Doberne starting to get onto the board. Will it be soon? Did he get there soon enough, though, is the question.
Yep. Life total a little low, under a lot of pressure. And there are a lot of cards that Benjamin could have here to really punish him. Any removal spell, a Daze, even a Brainstorm or Ponder into one.
Yeah, I think the reason he's not going for the Thalia, I think he's going for the Abrupt Decay here, in which case, yeah, he doesn't have to play around the Daze.
Interesting. It means he is going to eat a hit from the Geist of St. Traft, which is a little scary.
Yeah, that certainly is a lot of damage. Abrupt Decay will take down the Insectile Aberration, but Wheeler's able to swing for the full 6 with Geist of St. Traft. That puts Doberne down to just 7 life.
Alright. What's the follow-up here from Benjamin?
Well, he's got to keep the batter skull off the table.
Yeah.
Because if David gets even one batter skull hit in, that's going to make Ben's job a whole lot harder.
Yes. Looks like he has a submerge in his hand, so that's one way to do it. You can actually wait until it's in play, submerge the germ. Pretty powerful. You could also submerge the Stoneforge Mystic now.
We actually have an update. Doberne's actually all down to 4. There's another Insectile Aberration hit there.
Yep.
So things are a little tighter.
That does mean that the Angel token from Geist of St. Traft is going to represent lethal, and this sort of Feast and Famine, protection from green and black, which the Germ token for Batterskull is indeed black. So protection from all your dudes except for, Stoneforge Mystic Chumping.
Alright. Doberne has the option. He can Thought Seize it, but his life total is so low that that's probably not something he can do right now. He needs to find a way to live through that Angel token first of all. So he's going to start with Thalia, Guardian of Thraben.
It looks like the Birds is going to have to give herself up. I don't know why I gendered the Birds female, but she is, the plumage, I suppose, is feminine. I don't know. But she is going to have to give herself up if David's going to want to survive this next attack.
And Wheeler's going to go ahead and daze the Thalia. Just dazing for value here. He knows that David can't tap the Birds to pay for the daze. I think Wheeler's planning to submerge the Birds of Paradise.
Yep, it appears that way. Just making sure that he can't do something like land and have an Abrupt Decay in addition to the Birds. Blocking through the Thalia. A heads-up play, not too often do we see a daze that doesn't actually hard counter a spell, but it might as well have here because David is so choked.
Yeah, and David didn't even pay for the daze.
Yep. May feel that he doesn't have an option, no say in the matter.
Yeah, so David then passes the turn. Doesn't really matter when Wheeler goes for the submerge.
Yep. It is a free spell. That is the beautiful part about submerge. And there it is. That guy's very bad at surfing.
We see a 4 in blue in the upper right-hand corner. That is just a ruse, as the spell is pretty much only boarded in matchups where it's free.
Yeah, yep. That's just to keep Dark Confidant decks in check. That's what that number is for.
To stop counterbalance from whoever countering it, things like that.
So we see
Ponder cast, and Doberne's going to respond to the Ponder with Batterskull. So what that actually means here is that he's safe from would in theory be safe from the Geist of St. Traft because he could block and gain life off the Geist of St. Traft. As we know, the submerge should end the game now, so he can submerge the Germ token.
Get your Germ.
And he just shows a submerge, and we move on to a game 3.
That was ABC by Benjamin Wheeler's deck. That is exactly what the Delver deck wants to do. Turn 1 Delver, flip it immediately, deny you mana and kill your important guys, and just clock you out, and finish you off right before you're about to get back into the game. It treads that line beautifully, just like
turn 1's great, and it's downhill from there, and you just have to finish before you get too far downhill.
Just close your eyes and put your foot on the gas, and get them just before they are able to turn it back around and stabilize.
All right, so we're moving into game 3. The die roll, always very important in these matchups.
Yes, especially with both decks packing mana denial packages.
Right.
Being on the play, the first onto the board, and then being able to have your mana denial package be proactive rather than, at parity or behind. Obviously, when you're behind on board, wastelanding their third land is not exactly where you want to be.
So, when he's on the draw, obviously the Delver deck is really trying to can't fall behind. It can fall behind in a lot of ways. Like, say David starts on turn 1 Birds of Paradise or turn 1 Deathrite Shaman.
Okay.
That's a really great start for the Maverick deck. Does Wheeler board Force of Wills in to try to stop that? Is there any, that's obviously the 2-for-1 is something you really don't want in this matchup.
But it might be a necessary evil for.
Can he play fair and stop these starts?
I think I think that your answer to those starts to sort of retempo them is either, like the ideal obviously is your own Delver and submerge their 1-drop.
Yeah, that's great.
That is dreamland. If you can't do that, I think that it's very reasonable to just Source Depositors or Lightning Bolt their mana guy, and then on the following turn, say, play another removal spell on a Delver or a Stoneforge Mystic, and, you know, progress from there. But that does illustrate the value of being on the play versus the draw, is if your turn 1, instead of being a Delver, has to be a Plow so you don't fall too far behind, that does not bode well for, you know, your turn 2, 3, 4 sequence.
Yeah.
Once you get out of that range, then the game is at a sort of parity, and you can play straight up reasonably. But if you're trying to tempo somebody out with Delvers, having to waste a turn killing a mana dork is not where you want to be.
But given the option, if you have, so say your opponent starts on, you know, there's 3 1-drops, Mother of Runes, Deathrite Shaman, and Birds of Paradise. When the Maverick player starts on one of those 1-drops,
Mother dies on sight.
okay, Mother always has to get killed when you have the opportunity.
Yes, Mother dies on sight for reasons that we saw in game 1.
Yeah. Now, if he starts on a mana creature and Wheeler has the choice between Kill Spell and turn 1 Delver of his own,
it depends a little on the texture of his hand, but I would lean towards Delver. It's too important to get your clock out there.
All right, and we will see how this shapes up. We are on to game 3. And it looks like Doberne's on 7. And Wheeler is contemplating.
That is
Now-
one thing about these Delver decks, is that they seem to mulligan quite a bit. You know, it's 3 colors. Your mana base is a little strained with all these colored cards and wastelands. Ooh, there's Mother.
Public enemy number 1
Yep.
is going to be Mother of Runes here. Doberne plays it off. Actually, plays it off a Horizon Canopy. That was the only land available, but it also has the added bonus that it can't get submerged here because he played it off Horizon
Yes,
Canopy.
he does not control a forest yet.
So even if he had a Savannah here, it's very possible that he would have made this play.
Yes. Once your Mother is active, you can play, you know, as many forests as you want. It doesn't matter. But for this one turn where she's vulnerable, it is ideal to not have a forest yet.
All right, so we're going to see Wheeler's response. It's almost certain that the Delver deck has a 1-drop. He goes Volcanic Island and does have the Bolt for the Mother of Runes.
He has got to be, you know, wiping sweat from his brow.
And
Mother is not fun to play against if she gets active.
Unfortunately for him, right off the top of the deck for Doberne was a second Mother of Runes. So he's going to have yet another kill spell.
This is the stepmother of runes.
Aww. Ooh. All right. He does play the forest though, so he's Submerge is a thing.
All right. Now he's thinking about whether he wants to run that Mother out there, or whether he wants to maybe play another removable creature. No, he does go for the Mother first, and I think that that's sort of the default play. Unless you have a good reason to do something else, you want to be you know, Mother first.
So interestingly here, he had the option to play both Quirion Ranger or Green Sun Zenith for 1, and he chose to do neither.
I think I like Quirion Ranger there. I mean, if it gets dazed, you're not that upset about it, and if it doesn't, then you know you're better on board. Your mana is better for the next couple turns. I think he was trying a little too hard to play around daze there, when it actually would have been pretty profitable if Benjamin spent his turn dazing, replaying his land, and then he has to have the 1 mana removal spell. He can't ponder into it.
Yeah. Nonetheless, though, he does protect. If he has the mana advantage, he can protect all his threats from daze, which looks to be the line he's taking. Benjamin pondered that turn, looking for a kill spell for the Mother of Runes, but was unable to find one, so it looks like Mother's going to stick.
And this combo, if you thought 1 Mother activation a turn was annoying,
Now
boy.
you get 2 of them. Quirion Ranger is a 1-of in Doberne's deck, so it's a Green Sun target. But yeah, it's mostly there because it interacts really favorably with Mother of Runes and Knight of the Reliquary.
it has a couple cool applications, those being the main ones. Another one is extra Deathrite activations, as well as being able to infinite chump block with the Dryad Arbor. Dryad Arbor, actually being a forest and a creature, you can block, say, a giant Tarmogoyf with that Dryad Arbor, bounce it back to your hand, and then replay it, ready to do the same thing again next turn.
All right, so speaking of that infinite chump blocker, we're going to see that play be made. David Greensun Zeniths for 0 to get the Dryad Arbor into play. And it seems rather than making threats on the board, he's just pressing a mana advantage.
Yep. Which, all of his threats are pretty resilient. Anything that he plays after this, it pretty much has to be countered, because once it hits the board, it's going to be near impossible to kill. And this is the spot where the Delver deck needs something pretty fantastic, like engineered explosives for 1, maybe?
Engineered explosives for 1 seems very strong. It's one of the few ways that he can deal with Mother of Runes and Quirion Ranger, and he has just that.
That is actually a one-of in the sideboard of Benjamin Wheeler. These powerful, super powerful one-ofs that you can dig to with Brainstorms and Ponders. Really high-impact cards for narrow situations. Really awesome way to build a deck in Legacy.
Yeah, and so what once was looking like a difficult board state for Wheeler now looks pretty even. Both players with no permanents in play, or no threats in play, unless you count the Dryad Arbor on Dobern's side.
Ooh, don't doubt the power of the Dryad Arbor.
It's going to swing for 1. Doberne does have a good amount of threats now in his hand, though. He has a Knight of the Reliquary, a Scavenging Ooze, and he just drew a Batter Skull. Not the greatest job, but he's actually only 1 land away from activating it, which he can get there with the help of Knight of the Reliquary.
Yep, absolutely. Hardcast Batter Skull happens quite often in this deck. Gonna save 1 life rather than deal 1 damage. Tapping the Dryad Arbor instead of the Horizon Canopy, and it is gonna be Force of Will. So Benjamin Wheeler does have some amount of Force of Wills and Stifle in his deck on the draw post board. So definitely an interesting take on the sideboard plan, and that's what's really hard about playing against these Delver decks is you have no idea what their configuration is.
You're saying they're so Stifle not always on when they're on the draw.
Right. Stifle much better from the play. Often you still want them on the draw, but there are a lot of players that subscribe to the board it out on the draw, board them in on the play. And it's interesting to see Benjamin Wheeler having them in, and the Force of Will is also a card that many players board out in this matchup.
Yeah, well, it looks like the Stifle was pretty dead here, so it was it earned its worth in that it pitched to Force of Will.
Yes.
And now we see Benjamin with a threat. He's going to make a Delver of Secrets here.
Umezawa's GT drawn from David.
Yeah, so that's going to be pretty important. He's going to lead out on Scavenging Ooze. The question is going to be whether or not he casts the GT, but he does not. He's going to hit with Dryad Arbor.
He's actually
going to put a counter on Scavenging Ooze.
Yeah, he's going to put the Scavenging Ooze to 4/4 while Benjamin Wheeler's red mana is tapped out.
All right, so he's playing around Lightning Bolt.
Yep, very heads-up play.
All right, so now Wheeler's going to either have to Swords or Submerge the Scavenging Ooze if he wants to get it off the board.
Delver trigger.
And an excellent play for Doberne to make this guy 4/4 just in anticipation of a possible Lightning Bolt, which turned out to be there.
Even if he saw the Lightning Bolt and then did it, Benjamin Wheeler could still Brainstorm into the Lightning Bolt and kill the Ooze. So David Doberne, very heads-up play, and it pays off. But
so he does have here is Umezawa's GT and cast, so that'll pose a pretty big problem. Both players with GT. Wheeler's the first one with GT, though.
And that is crucial, not only because it gets the first hit in, but also, I was going to say because you can deny the mana by killing Dryad Arbor, but Benjamin Wheeler choosing not to do that, looking to pump and get David dead.
Yeah, so I think the plan he's on is that because he has the Lightning Bolts in his hand that aren't doing anything, he's going to just use the GTA to deal extra damage and hopefully Lightning Bolt the rest of the way there.
That does appear to be the plan.
Now, by leaving Doberne the 4th mana, it does mean that Doberne can play and equip his own GTA. Remember, with the Legend rolled now, this is not going to remove Wheeler's GTA.
No, these are 2 parallel universes. This is the same GTA in a alternate timeline.
All right, so a hit of 4 for for David Doberne puts Wheeler down to 12. So what that looks like is that now if Wheeler wants to pump, Doberne can gain the life back. So pushing extra damage with the GTA no longer an option. But Wheeler's going to have to be careful to keep counters on his GTA because otherwise Doberne's GTA will kill the Insectile Aberration.
Absolutely. And now it's time to start grinding.
Yeah. This is very interesting. I think this is a new, fairly, at least for me, a new board state.
Yes.
I haven't seen dueling GTAs yet.
Can you imagine Kamigawa block constructed.
It would have been even harder to remove Umezawa's Jite, and the card was already obscene. So that would have been a thing. I think Benjamin Wheeler getting punished a little bit for not killing Dryad Arbor.
I agree. I thought that was going to be, the knee-jerk reaction, the sort of default play, but Benjamin Wheeler choosing to go with the more aggressive line, trying to get him dead.
All right, and he's going to go ahead and play Wasteland. Well, he opts to Wasteland the Bayou to get David off of black mana. I think he's trying to make sure that Abrupt Decay is not cast on his own Jite.
Correct. Losing your own Jite here would be basically game over, and Benjamin Wheeler recognizing that, taking out the black, giving himself at least a couple more turns, even if David does draw the Abrupt Decay.
All right, Scavenging Ooze looking at the graveyard, seeing if there's more food there. I don't know if there's another creature in Wheeler's yard for him. For the turn, Doberne drew a fetch land, which would have been enough to hardcast a Batterskull a turn ago, but right now is not going to do it because of thanks to Wasteland.
So an interesting game state. Geist of St. Traft hits about as hard as a Scavenging Ooze. I would say those are near equivalent. And then we have an Insectile Apparition racing, but not really.
And so how possible is it for Doberne to go on the defensive here? It looks like if he goes on the offensive, he's going to lose the race, especially because Wheeler's deck plays Lightning Bolts.
Correct. The question is whether he can realistically start defending. I don't think he can, because the Insectile Aberration continues to accumulate counters on Umezawa's Jite, and if David Doberne's not attacking with his Scavenging Ooze, and
he'll fall behind in the Jite race?
Yeah, he'll fall behind on Jite counters, and there will be extreme difficulties from there. Speaking of extreme difficulties, looks like we're tanking a little on, figuring out how to calculate this race. Like you said, this is a very unique game plan.
Well, yeah, the idea of having there's a ton of Jite counters on both sides. Remember, there's 3 modes on Jite, so there's so many different options that each player has.
The decision trees are just outrageous, and all of the creatures have these weird abilities also, like flying, make another dude. Then the Scavenging Ooze has, its ability. Dryad Arbor is a mana guy.
Yeah, I still wonder when Ben's going to pull the trigger, and if he is ever going to pull the trigger to take care of that Dryad Arbor.
Yeah, I mean, I recognize that it's basically a break-even thing exchange, because the Scavenging Ooze then gets to eat the Dryad Arbor and grow by 1 anyway, but the mana denial is actually a real thing, especially with Horizon Canopy being in play. If you can choke his mana, you make it less attractive to draw that extra card off of the Horizon Canopy, and even if he does choose to cash it in, he's going to have more difficulty utilizing that extra card if he's more choked on mana. I certainly would have taken out the Dryad Arbor a while ago, but instead he's going to accumulate some counters on the Umezawa Jite, probably try and get David dead.
All right, so here's the swing from Scavenging Ooze. It's 4/4. No profitable blocks for Wheeler.
No.
Yeah, it's interesting. When you have 2 Jites, it almost seems like the -1/-1 ability on it becomes the worst ability.
Yeah, because the other ones have double the effect.
Right.
So now it's Benjamin Wheeler's turn to do some math.
Yeah, so he can take this if he wants to.
Yeah.
And I think he's going to come to the conclusion that that's what he needs to do.
Yep.
Yep, so he takes 4 off the Scavenging Ooze. He goes down to 7. Now both Jites are at parity with 4 counters apiece. Remember,
6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. So he's actually representing lethal here. Benjamin Wheeler is.
And it looks like that last card in Doberne's hand is Elspeth Knight Errant.
That's not going to cut it here. So this Dryad Arbor is going to have to give himself up. As with that Lightning Bolt, even through the 8 life from Umezawa's Jite, this is 18 damage if unblocked.
Well, the way you can count is you can just assume that all the Jite counters cancel each other
Yes, they equalize. So it is 3, 4, 5, plus 4 for the Angel, plus the Lightning Bolt, right?
Yes.
So it's actually 2 over. So the Dryad Arbor blocking the Geist-Sustaining Draft isn't even enough.
No, no. He should have lethal here. He has to just make sure that he makes the swing. We'll see here. So Wheeler just putting it together himself, making sure that he also agrees he has lethal.
Yeah.
He's gonna go. It looks like he's gonna move the GT to Geist of St. Traps. That
certainly a mistake.
That could take away the lethal swing, as it allows a chump block from Dryad Arbor.
Yeah, that is a massive blunder.
Well, that should be fine since Dryad Arbor is gone now. It's still okay.
If this is not okay, it's still lethal then, right?
It is still lethal thanks to the Angel token.
No, now it's one
He's
short.
gonna eat. So Doberne goes up to 11. He gains 2 more. That'll be 13 with the unblocked creatures. He takes 9. He has 1 extra. Yeah, I believe he will only go to 1.
Right. Yeah, it does appear that he will be 6, 7, 8, 9.
Well, Doberne also can eat the Dryad Arbor with Scavenging Ooze. Yeah, I don't believe that, because of that GT move, I don't believe that Benjamin Wheeler has enough damage anymore.
Yeah, and now the Insectile Aberration is going to be vulnerable to next turn's GT counters.
Yeah, and Doberne seems very in control of this situation.
Yeah, he did the math last turn.
The Geist-Sustaining Draft is now an 8/8. Doberne burning his counters to gain life here. Gaining just enough life to make this attack not lethal. So right now the attack is for exactly 15. So Doberne's going to have to use either 1 more counter or a Scavenging Ooze activation.
4, 5, 6, 7, 15.
I'm going to go ahead.
GT pumped 3 times, you're right. So
this is for
exactly
15. He's going to go ahead and eat Knight of the Reliquary, I believe.
He ate something.
He ate something, yes. And another creature, so he has 1 more left in Dryad Arbor. But that'll put him up to 16. This attack will only bring him down to 1.
He can actually use these last 2 counters to kill the Insectile Aberration right now.
Yeah, I'm not sure that he needs to do that. The thing is actually, if he does use them that way, he will die to Lightning Bolt.
Right, and he knows about the Lightning Bolt too.
Right, he knows about Lightning Bolt. So I think he needs to save those. Yeah, he needs to save that.
All right, well that's break even. Horizon Canopy tapping, losing a life, and then gaining it back with the Scavenging Ooze.
So Scavenging Ooze now a 7/7. Yeah, Doberne can, and I think the graveyard's now empty of creatures. Doberne does have a 7/7.
So he's going to have to use these counters to gain life, right?
In response, yeah. What he wants to make sure is that his swing back is lethal, and thanks to that tap on Horizon Canopy, it is lethal. So Doberne takes damage. He will go down to 1. But the 2 counters that the GJ just got may be enough to keep Wheeler alive on this attack.
Right, because both of these counters... actually only 1 counter needs to gain life necessarily, because David Doberne's gonna have a painless green once he untaps.
There's not a creature.
There's no more creatures left.
So it may be, had he not, I'm not sure, him using that Horizon Canopy maybe did cost him 2 damage by using the Horizon Canopy on the Dryad Arbor as opposed to doing it this turn.
Alright, looks like gain a life, pump, bolt you.
And he sees the line, that'll do it. So
wow.
Benjamin Wheeler defeats David Doberne 2 games to 1 in a really tight game and moves to 3-0 with Blue-White Red Delver.
GT math? GT versus GT math.
Pretty difficult.
Yeah. not your everyday Magic.
Yeah, even if Doberne makes the play where he makes the green painless to get rid of the Dryad Arbor, he's still going to be short some damage.
Right.
He has to trade all the GT counters.
Well, he floated the green from the Dryad Arbor and used that, so that was good. And then he used his other non-paying green, the Bayou. So instead of using the Canopy, I guess he could have fetched, and then when he untaps, he has 1 more activation, but there's no creatures left.
There's no more creatures, so that doesn't really make a difference.